Hello everybody and welcome! If you've been following my channel for the past couple of months, you might have noticed that I've been talking a lot about the development of an upcoming space simulation game called Kitten Space Agency, a potential spiritual successor to Kerbal space program. So far, the bits and pieces that the developers showed off look promising, at least visually. And they even used their own bespoke framework instead of an off-the-shelf gaming engine like Unity. The latter caused a lot of problems for the original developers of KSP, some of which are now part of the team working on Kitten Space Agency, or KSA for short. But the big question is, are they going to pull off making a fun game? KSP was almost lightning in a bottle, and so far its success was not replicated, neither by the now abandoned and unfinished sequel, nor by attempts by other developers like, for instance, Juno New Origins. Don't get me wrong, Juno is great and avoids a lot of the issues that have always plagued KSP. It has an 87% approval rating on Steam, yet it doesn't appear to sell too well, ranking a lot worse than either of the Kerbal games, which I think is a pity. Rocketworks, the company behind KSA, has already published a couple of games. Today we're going to look at Stationeers and Icarus, both space-related games, but not really rocket simulators like KSP. And if you want to stay in the loop about KSA development or for other space game-related content, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. We are almost at 100,000 subscribers, and who knows, if this video performs well, we might crack that milestone together in a few days. First, let's start with Stationeers. As you might have guessed from the name, it has something to do with space stations and engineering. It's a survival game where you start out all on your own on the Moon, Mars, or even more exotic locations and need to use the materials available to create shelter. And, well, right from the start you will notice that this is a deeply complex game. There's different inventories, different consumables, different ways of building stuff and how to construct something. Seriously, play the tutorials before attempting a real game. There's some really important primer info in them, so you at least know the basics of how some of the stuff in the game works. Armed with that knowledge, I set out to build my first space station on the Moon. And, well, I got stuck about an hour into playing. I built the generator, but I had no idea what type of fuel I should put into it. I tried oxide, because I thought oxygen is important for burning stuff, right? But still, when I used my tablet tool to analyze the power lines, there still was no power to my stuff. Except for the doors, but I believe those ran off a battery. The solar panel was not in direct sunlight, but at least a little bit under the sun, yet it didn't generate any power. So, if we're being honest, in some ways this is very much how my first Kerbal space program experience was more than a decade ago. I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. At least not until I found videos like those from Scott Manley, which explained a lot how rockets work, how orbits work, etc. I don't think you're going to have a fun time in Stationeers without external help. For instance, the autoclave, which I have no idea how to use. The task segment on the top left tells me to fully build it and power it. But what does fully building mean? Because there's an option to upgrade it with my screwdriver and some kind of mod. But what is that mod? Where do I get it? And how do I craft it? There's also the task to fill a room with oxygen until it reaches a certain level of pressure. Sure, let's drag that big old tank inside the room and open the valve, right? Wrong! Apparently that valve that's labeled decrease doesn't do anything. At least not until I secure that tank into some kind of connector. Okay, so I guess I need to build that. How? In the tutorials, these tank holder things were always already present. In short, my first foray into Stationeers was a bit frustrating. But I sense there is a deep level of stuff inside of that game that I lack the ability to unlock without outside help. Or maybe I need to get an engineering degree first. This is a bit of a gripe I have with a lot of developers who are very much focused on the technical side of things. They expect people to have a level of knowledge that most normal people just don't have. And this is honestly my biggest fear when it comes to KSA. Their goal is to nail the technology side now and then add on the gameplay. Which kind of makes sense because they want to basically simulate the universe in such a way that the game can be made on top of it. But at some point, the fun has to come in. That being said, I do believe that if you invest the time, you will be able to have fun with Stationeers. I mean, there's data connections for devices, which I still have no idea what to use them for, but I can imagine that there's some way to open or close a valve or door when certain conditions are met. So yeah, fun station building game if you take the time to learn it, which I honestly do not have right now. Alright, on to Icarus. Again, you are a lonely explorer sent into a hostile environment with not much equipment. Basically, without any equipment. You gather rocks and sticks to build axes and other tools so you can collect more stuff to make more complicated tools so you can gather even more stuff even quicker. And collecting food and water is of course also a priority because, well, life and stuff. While the game looks a lot prettier than Stationeers, there's still a very cluttered interface because you have a lot of inventory management. And I haven't yet seen the game that does inventory management without UI clutter. In my first half hour on this planet, I felled a tree, mined some oxide, tried and failed to hunt deer, managed to kill some kind of horse, a wolf, a goat-like thing, and a rabbit, and built a campfire to cook their meat. I also apparently got dysentery, was wounded and have no idea how to patch myself up, and I found no way to sleep without a bedroll, for which I would have had to murder a couple more animals. The similarities to Stationeers are plenty. Hostile environment, you need to use sparse resources to build stuff to survive, a complicated user interface, and apparently nobody bothered to teach you anything before they sent you away on this mission. Look, I kind of understand. Most modern games nowadays do an amount of hand-holding that's almost unbearable if you have half a brain. However, both of these games made me feel like a monkey sent into space. I know how to press a few buttons, but I have no idea what's going on around me. And it's also not realistic. If you were an astronaut sent into space as a pioneer to build a base on the moon, sure, there are going to be a lot of situations where you will have to improvise or discover things for yourself. But you should have at least a minimum of training. In Icarus, there's this manual where you can look up all available items and what you need to build them. But you know what's missing? A manual what I can actually do. Am I able to sleep at all without a bedroll or bed or anything like that? Or am I forced to stay awake all night because I found no clue, neither in the key bindings nor anywhere else, how to go to sleep? Which is kind of weird because I can eat and drink easily, I don't even have to cook food, I can eat my berries raw. But how do I sleep so I can skip the night and continue working in daylight? I thought I could create a torch by holding a stick into the fire, but I only set fire to myself and had to run into the water to quench it. Maybe it would have stopped on its own, I don't know. The game tells me to build a radio. Okay, fine, but I'm not even capable to sleep. How am I supposed to build a radio? Apparently there are more game modes, maybe you start out with more resources and available tools in those, I don't know. I just tried the open world because that was the first thing that was offered to me. I'm probably not the right audience for either of these games. I never was into the survival game genre too much. Rust or Subnautica, those passed me by without me bothering. Don't Starve? I tried it, didn't like it. So that part is a me problem. But a little more guidance on what I'm capable of doing or how to do it would have been appreciated. Does that spell doom for Kitten Space Agency? No, not really. KSA is going to rely heavily on Kerbal Space Program's gameplay mechanics at first, meaning they want to basically rebuild the game, but this time on a much more stable platform that will enable them to iterate faster and with fewer crack and mishaps. What Rocketworks' previous titles prove is that the studio is capable of building games with a lot of depth. And maybe that's exactly what a successor to KSP needs, since after you have mastered landing on and returning from a challenging planet, there is not really a lot you can do. Now, some base building stuff that's a bit more accessible than Stationeers could be something that would elevate KSA compared to the original space game. So I remain cautiously optimistic, especially since the team at Rocketworks has a couple of the original KSP developers on board working really hard to create a great game. Whatever the outcome may be, I'm going to keep an eye on where the development of KSA is headed. And if you think that deserves your support, you can join my Patreon, where top-tier members see videos a couple of days before everyone else, and starting from the second tier you can watch all my videos ad-free over there. And if you sign up on Patreon or as a YouTube member for one of the higher tiers, your name will show up here together with all of these wonderful folks. Thank you so much for your support. And I have some affiliate links in the description for the stuff I use to create these videos if you're interested in that type of thing. Now, let me ask you, have you tried either Stationeers or Icarus? What did you think of these games? Did you enjoy them? Why or why not? Let me know in the comments. And do you think the developers will be able to inject the fun into KSA? Personally, I don't know, but I certainly hope so. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel for more and follow me on my social thingies. The links are in the description. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.